What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Rubber Match. We got a loaded episode this week for you. Not one, but two interviews as we're hitting stretch time, and it is almost May here in Fayetteville. So you know what that means? Postseason right around the corner. We start with Arkansas baseball. They'll take on Florida this upcoming weekend, and who better to talk about in our Pig Trail Nation room? If you follow us, you know about her, you know who she is, and you know she's a Florida grad. Courtney Mims gonna join the show and break down Florida baseball and give an epic rant on Kevin O'Sullivan and the Florida Gators season so far. That is first, and then after that, be sure to stick around because Ethan Westerman gonna join the show to talk about the stretch run for Courtney Deifel's softball squad as they go to College Station this weekend to take on the number 1/number 2 ranked Texas A&M Aggies, and then they'll finish next week at home against the LSU Tigers before the SEC tournament. So a big loaded episode this week on the Rubber Match. Really excited. Thank you all for joining the show as always. I try to get this about 24 hours out ahead of the start of the series. Both of those teams play tomorrow, hence why this episode is releasing today on Thursday. So let's get right into it. Enough about me. We'll get to those interviews in a little bit, but let's do what we always do. Let's do our housekeeping stuff here on the Rubber Match and go over some of the big performances from this past weekend. And I think it has to start in the Texas A&M series. If you want one bright spot, despite the series loss, look, Arkansas did get a game. It was a very good win that they had, but you want a bright spot, you got to go to this guy. It is Gabe Gackle and the performance he gave in the second game. Coming out of the bullpen, throwing about 5 innings, absolutely shutting down the Texas A&M offense, who has been red hot lately. You know, he only gave up 1 home run, which you could say that's fine. You know, that is expected. Give up a run in 5 innings. But he shut down maybe the most fun baseball player I got to watch at least this year in Jace Laviolette, as well as the rest of the Aggie squad. Gabe Gackle, K count already now up to 50 as he continues to maybe find his form now coming out of the bullpen. Now, what I will say, Gage Wood also came back in the starting rotation, was on a pitch limit, was only going to pitch 1 inning, but ended up being less because he gave up a couple runs to start. So good to get Gabe back, Gage Wood back, and good to see Gabe back to that 2024 form coming out of the bullpen and being that dominant lockdown arm for the Razorbacks, because now you have something fun where you can go Gabe Gackle and Aiden Jimenez, both of those guys, long-distance relievers out of the bullpen where they could be their best. So really good to see there. But let's talk a little bit about this offense, and specifically these two guys. Cahillo and Vahiva Aloy, they just continue to absolutely rake. They are up to 28 home runs on the season. Vahiva had his 16th of the night last night, which, think about it this way, guys. Last year he had 14. Now he's already up to 16, and we still got what? Florida, Texas, LSU, and Tennessee regular season series to go. And on top of that, the SEC tournament and the eventual regional that may or may not be at Baum-Walker Stadium. We don't know. As of right now, Arkansas is ranked 5. They will still, as long as they go about 500 the rest of these series, be a national seed. But only time will tell. Again, anything could happen. But right now, not the number 1 team in the country. Let's go to our field view right now before we get into our interviews and bring on Courtney Mims, because this is an interesting trend that I'm starting to see with Arkansas. You can look up and down all of their average, the batting average. Again, batting average doesn't tell you much. It's not one of the better statistics used. You're really looking at OBP and OBS right now. Again, Vahiva, Cahillo, Davalon just continue to hit the ball really well. But then you've got kind of your next batch of guys, a Cam Koziel, JTJ, Brent Iredale, Helfrich, Gabe Frazier, Cam Koziel, who are all kind of struggling at the moment. They haven't had their best series. A lot of the Razorback hitters didn't hit particularly well against the Aggies. I think you can go to games 1 and games 3, and 5 of the Razorbacks' 9 hitters combined for 4 for 31 in those 2 losses. So something that's a little bit concerning. But again, you just got to think it's the ebbs and flows of the season. These guys are getting a lot of at-bats, and finally, other pitchers and other staffs are starting to figure it out. Now, when it comes to Florida this weekend, they've got one of the best pitchers in the SEC, Liam Peterson, going. Again, we'll break all that down momentarily, but really cool to see how the Razorbacks kind of are lining up. I expect it to be the same. Maybe you'll see a spot start on Saturday or Sunday for Carson Bowles as Logan Maxwell continues to get some rest throughout the season as they try not to overdo it. I believe he suffered a hamstring injury a while ago that they're still nursing a little bit, but Maxwell's been pretty good to go the entire season. So that's essentially all that I got for you right now when it comes to the overview of how this team has been in the last 2 weeks. The Little Rock series, what was really impressive to me was the pitching bounce back from all the starters. Arkansas threw 9 pitchers. I'm going to read you the statistic that I tweeted out yesterday. 9 pitchers, 16 innings, 8 hits allowed, 3 walks, 0 runs, 22 strikeouts. Look, Matt Hobbs said, and Cole Gibler actually told us what Hobbs said, that they don't view that Little Rock series as a get-back series. They won game 1, 10-0-7, game 2, 4-0 in 9 innings. But you got to think it is a little bit of a get-right series as you're, not facing the talent you're going to be facing this weekend with Florida or last weekend against Texas A&M. But it is a step in the right direction, and right now that's all you want to see for the Hogs, especially the bullpen who really, had that game in Game 3 that was really tight, and then you come in and give up a bunch of runs after the break. Aiden Jimenez didn't come back in. You put in Cole Gibbler. He gives up that home run, and the dominoes kind of just fall from there. So good to see the Arkansas pitching staff getting back to what they do best. Let's see if it'll continue this weekend against Florida. All right, enough about me. Enough, sure that you all want to hear me speak. So without further ado, our first interview is with Courtney Mims. Check it out. Here we go. All right, our loaded episode of the Rubber Match continues. Coming up in a little bit, Ethan Westerman will join the show. But for now, how can you not talk about Florida with the one person that is on the show right now? She's a Florida alum, our interim sports director at Pig Trail Nation. It's Courtney Mims. Courtney, first of all, I know that you've been really excited to talk about Sully and the team, but thanks for coming on the show. It means a lot.
Yeah, I always appreciate coming on and chatting some baseball with you. And honestly, I'm not really excited to talk about this baseball team. I'll be honest with you. If you want to talk about Florida basketball and winning a national title, we can talk about that. That's what more Florida fans right now are talking about. So this baseball team has kind of gone to the wayside. I think people might wake up and realize, oh, wait. Are they not going to make the College World Series? What's going on?
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of in that headspace of the first question I thought I was going to ask you was like, but aren't all Florida fans still like hungover from basketball season? Because I think that would make sense. But without further ado, let's jump into this Florida baseball team because I think they're really intriguing. And you look at them, they lost their first 4 SEC series in that first couple of weeks. And it's kind of the same thing you saw with A&M where they got off to a tough start. So did Florida. What's really been the issue with the Gators? Is it Sully and the way he's managing this team, or is it kind of pieces aren't clicking together early on this season?
Well, honestly, let's give a basketball reference here. Arkansas basketball started very rocky in SEC play, very similar to Florida baseball. They got swept in their first 2 SEC series. So starting 0-6, they actually technically started 0-8 because they lost those first 2 games to Ole Miss as well in that series. So it was kind of, panic mode a little bit and very similar to Arkansas basketball. Well, what happened with Arkansas basketball? You and I both know this, Evan. Injuries. And that's what hurt this Florida baseball team as well. They had injuries, especially to their starting pitchers, that hurt them so bad early on. And when you're dealing with injuries, it exposed another problem for Florida baseball, which was they just didn't have the depth on the pitching staff to deal with that. So Sully was in a little bit of, whoa, I have never seen this before with my teams where our starting pitchers having all these injuries, and now I just don't have enough depth to deal with that. So that's what was going on. Not to mention, what do you need if your pitching staff isn't helping, isn't doing the work? You've got to have the offense to match. You've got to have the offense do something. They didn't do anything in those first 2 series when they got swept. I'm serious. You laugh.
Tell us how you really feel, Courtney.
I know, but when you look at those first 2 series against Tennessee, when they got swept by the Volunteers and when they got swept by Georgia as well, Florida was outscored 62-20 in those first 6 SEC games. So if your pitching staff isn't helping and you can't get the offense to do anything, you're pretty much dead in the water. And so I will say injuries hurt them, and they're going up against so many talented teams in the SEC. But then you talk about them beating Florida State, and Florida State's a ranked baseball team right now. I mean, they're 4th in the rankings this week, 4th or 5th. So here's the thing. They can do it. They've shown they have the talent. It's just not being consistent enough. So it's puzzling to watch this team. But now that they've gotten some guys healthy, that's where they're starting to, they're turning a corner a little bit. I wouldn't say all the way, and I know Sully feels the same way on that, but they're turning a corner a little bit, Evan.
Yeah, Aiden King and Liam Peterson. Peterson specifically was projected to be one of the top pitchers in the SEC, and they've got the starting rotation, does Florida, right? Like, those pieces are there, but to your point, it's the rest of the bullpen. A lot of guys in that 4, 5, 6+ ERA. They don't have that lockdown kind of bullpen arm that you would like to see that maybe an Arkansas kind of has at certain times, I should say. But and then even on the hitting, you're absolutely right. Like Luke Heyman is the guy who's been on and off. I remember when we talked about him last year, and he made a really big impact in the Arkansas series. Same with Brody Dene, one of those freshmen last year coming in and was supposed to be and take another big step, and just really hasn't done that yet. So now when you look at the Gators, right, we talked about their dry spell of when they just were not winning baseball games, but they've won the last two series, albeit against two of the worst teams in the SEC. But what can you take out of those two wins that, shows that, hey, there's some life there? Because Florida's won 6 straight home SEC games, like not or home games, I should say, not SEC games. But it's a team that's clicking and starting to find their groove, like Texas A&M, and specifically, they've been really good at home. Where Arkansas now has to go to Florida and go win in the Swamp and try to get back on a winning streak.
Well, you talk about those two series, and Missouri and Mississippi State, I think, were the two that they did really well in. And Mississippi State, I really was impressed because that was the series I watched.
Mm-hmm.
You have I've been kind of on Florida basketball and watching SEC basketball, and so now I flipped to okay, let's see what Florida baseball is doing. And I was actually really impressed with what they did against Mississippi State because while you're right, they're not a great team in the SEC. They do have an okay pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
They're as a team, their ERA, I think, is 7th in
Yeah.
the league. So that's in the top half of the league. Not great again, but still something to be impressive. Still something to say, okay, they have some arms there. And Florida scored 32 runs over the weekend as a team. So I think there's okay. You're starting to see it click offensively. You talked about Brody Dene. You talked about some of those hitters. He had a home run that was really clutch in one of those games in that series. But Brendan Lawson, that was a guy that I kind of went, oh, wow. They have other offensive weapons in this lineup. And he was a guy that was 6 of 14 at the plate. He got SEC Player of the Week for a reason. So he's a guy to watch out for. But you mentioned the best hitters, right? You talked about their offensive talent. What I like to see was that it was all throughout the lineup. It wasn't just one or two guys. The lineup as a whole did something. You up and down it. You went, okay, we got contributions from most of that lineup. And so that was, for me, very refreshing to see. It was good for Sully to see too, because he said, look, this was our best offensive series by far.
Yeah.
And there was a reason for that. So that was good. Pitching still an issue. You mentioned Liam Peterson. He had a much better showing. I've talked about him dealing with injury. I still think, he's trying to get back into that groove. He did much better against Mississippi State on Friday night. The other starters, you mentioned Aiden King, not so much. They struggled. What I like to see was the bullpen doing something as well in that game. They didn't do bad. They didn't give up many earned runs in that Friday and Saturday games. I think maybe 3 earned runs.
Right.
The bullpen gave up in those 2 games. Now, Sunday's game a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Barlow giving up 5 runs in that 8th inning was not nice to see. I will be honest with you in Sunday's game. But
Yeah.
but the bullpen did okay up to that point. Okay, so hey, there's a little bit of confidence there for Sully that they can do something. Now, can he rely on them? No, I don't think this pitching staff, you can say confidently, yes, we're going to rely on every guy. They don't have the depth like Arkansas does. And so we'll see what happens against Arkansas. I'm not very confident in this Florida team at all. So that should give Arkansas fans a very refreshing statement right there.
Yeah, especially with the Hogs coming after, another series loss. You lost to Georgia in a really close series. Then Texas A&M maybe wasn't necessarily as close as the Georgia series, losing, the first game by 3. The second game, I believe it was 9-2. But now you got to move forward, right? If you're Arkansas, it sounds like what you're saying Arkansas fans should be very happy about. But again, you never know. That's kind of the fun thing about baseball. But as we wrap up with you right now, Courtney, I'm curious. Let's play my favorite game, right? It's the fill in the blank. If Florida wants to win this series and give Arkansas a third, or you could play it the other way, whichever way you want to play it. If Arkansas wants to win the series, what has to happen? What is that X that has to happen if Florida wants to win the series and if Arkansas wants to win this series?
Well, let's be very clear. I think Arkansas has the upper hand on a lot of things that they have going on for them offensively and defensively and with their pitching staff. I just think they're the better team.
Right.
Now, does that mean Florida couldn't maybe win one game in this? No, they have to have a couple of things go right for them. And that is the starters have to be good, right? The starters you have to get good showings from your starters on the mound. That is something they've struggled with. If they can get quality innings out of all of those starters, I think they're in good shape. That doesn't mean the bullpen's going to come in and be amazing. It just means, okay, they got quality starts from their starters. The other thing that Sully has mentioned, and something that that I haven't mentioned that Florida has struggled with offensively, is situational hitting. There have been many times this season when runners have been left on base. And even in the series win over Mississippi State just last weekend, they left 26 on base. And so Sully made the point. He's like, we've struggled with situational hitting all year long. There was quite a few situations this past weekend. He said this, that they had a runner on third with less than 2 outs and they just couldn't put the ball in play. That is a problem for this team. And so that's where Arkansas can capitalize, right? I think Arkansas has the pitching staff to go ahead and say, look, we're not going to stress out in those situations. We know that Florida struggles there, and we're going to be calm. They have enough pitchers to go, okay, we're going to be calm, cool, and collected in this situation and capitalize off of that. I think Florida is going to strand quite a few runners in this series. That's just my opinion because of how good Arkansas's pitching staff is. And I know that there has been their struggles as well. I know Arkansas's had struggles with their starters as well. And so maybe there's something that Florida can capitalize on with Arkansas. If Arkansas starters aren't doing well, that's maybe something, okay, can we capitalize early on in this game and score enough to get us through? I don't see it happening, Evan. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't see it
Be
happening
honest.
with this
We love
Florida
the
team.
honesty. We love the honesty.
I don't see it happening with this
Yeah.
Florida team. I think Arkansas is the better team, and this hopefully Arkansas needs a series win right now. They do, and Florida's the perfect place to get that series win, especially on the road in the SEC. I think Florida's a team you are the better team. Arkansas's the better team, so they can go to Gainesville and capitalize there, especially with who's coming up. I mean, you've got Texas and Tennessee. I mean, it's going to be tough for Arkansas to round out the season. So go to Florida, get some confidence, feel really good, right? And then go into this gauntlet that you've got coming up.
It feels like for Arkansas, last year's South Carolina series all over again, where you want them to get confidence. The difference is last year they couldn't do it. They won the South Carolina series, but they were not able to continue that momentum and fell in series to Kentucky and some of the other teams that they played to end the year. You have that similar feel in your mouth. We're about 3 or 4 weeks away from the SEC tournament. Question is who can get hot, who cannot get hot right now. And for Arkansas, they can't go into Gainesville and lose a series and expect everything to be fine. Then we're looking at, maybe they're going to not be a national seed and a top 8 seed. Maybe they might fall out of the top 16 as a whole. So again, only time will tell. We don't know. Courtney, anything else you want to rant about before we go? This has been a lot of fun.
In years past, Evan, I have ranted about Kevin O'Sullivan and midweek games, but I actually will give Florida some credit. They have been performing well in the midweek. I think last time I looked, I think they were 8-0 in midweek contests. And I was like, okay, all right, that's fine, at least at home there. So look, I will say this. Kevin O'Sullivan knows I just hate that it's like, the midweeks. They don't care about the midweek games. They don't care. But they beat Florida State. So I'm going to give him some credit. I'm not going to rant about that. I'm going to actually give him some credit here on this show.
Things that were not on my bucket list for this 10-minute, 15-minute conversation with Courtney Mims, her giving Kevin O'Sullivan credit for midweek series. But anyway, that's going to do it, Courtney. Thanks for joining the show. Our loaded rubber match continues after this with Ethan Westerman as him and I break down softball in their final stretch to get to the SEC tournament. That's coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the rubber match. I did a little wardrobe change because how can you not win this guy joining the show? That's Ethan Westerman of Whole Hog Sports. He's someone who's been following and keeping up with Arkansas softball for many, many years now. Ethan, it's crazy. Here we are, 2 weeks left of the regular season. The Hogs on the road against number 1/number 2. Again, depends where you look at Texas A&M. And then they'll close out the regular season at home next weekend against LSU. I'm curious for you, Ethan. You've seen a lot of different versions of this Courtney Deifel softball team, but with this particular program, you start off not how you wanted to. You get swept by Oklahoma, and then you've won 4 straight SEC series. What's been the change with this Arkansas softball team? Why have they suddenly found themselves at the right time of the season.
Yeah, I truly think they needed a series or a result or just something that could get them confident and feeling like they could beat anybody. And people are well aware of the Arkansas basketball team, what they did. I think there's actually a lot of parallel with that team and the softball team. The softball team never fell out of the poll or anything or ever wasn't projected to be in the postseason like what happened with men's basketball, but both started 1-5 and just kind of needed that result to go their way that proved like, hey, backs are against the wall. What can we lose now? For the men's basketball team, that was going into Kentucky, coming out of there in John Calipari's return, and it was just kind of like a what do we have to lose? For the softball team, they started 1-5 in the SEC, got swept by OU, and then up next was a series at Tennessee. And I think that was truly a, like, what's there to lose right now type of deal. They went in there, they won 2 of 3, really could have swept the series. They lost by 1 run in game 3. And oh, by the way, look who's number 1 right now in the nation. It's Tennessee. Arkansas is their only series loss. I think that was kind of their result that got everybody feeling like, okay, we can beat anybody if we play our best game. And yeah, like you said, they've been playing pretty well ever since. They swept Kentucky. That's their lone sweep that they've gotten to be on the right side of, but they've won series over South Carolina. Obviously, it started with Tennessee. They got a huge series win at Florida. That was like kind of act 2, I felt like, of the Tennessee series. And then South Carolina at home, a really good South Carolina team that was not projected to be very good this year, but has proven that they're pretty scrappy. This team, I just think that they got that confidence in the right place right now, and they're just better hitting this year. I mean, it's not that complicated, like to figure out, like, what the changes. Whenever you bat 278 as a team last year, and then you're looking up this year and you're at 338, I mean, that's a big jump. And I think that it's the year 2 Gasso effect, and you're finally just seeing it kind of start to come together of, like, players are confident. They're hitting the ball well. They have Robin Heron pitching well. I just feel like they're honestly, I have, Heron's in the ace role, and they have 3 others who have really stepped up and had their moments of being pretty dominant, like Cam Harris in game 3 at Florida. They don't win without her. Reese Berline at Tennessee, the last game that they lost, she came in and pitched, I think, she came in relief, but finished the game and didn't give up a hit. And then she had a perfect game this past weekend. And then Peyton Berlin, the Tennessee series, she had a phenomenal game in game 2 for them to win it. Like, they've all had their moments.
Yeah.
It's just that consistency, I think, that they're looking for right now, to where I truly feel like they are another pitcher just being consistent away from this team being just one that it's hard to find a whole lot of holes.
It's so funny because you bring up that, like, Arkansas men's basketball reference, and Courtney and I just talked about that with Florida baseball, where it feels like, you can put Arkansas softball in that group, but you can put Arkansas baseball in the other, where baseball is starting to not hit their stride when it is the most important. They're searching for answers, but the softball team, they are. And again, to your point, it's been Reese Berline looked really good, but it's that lineup, right? It's that middle of the order. Bri Ellis gets intentionally walked, it feels like every single game, because who the heck wants to face her? Then you got to face Courtney Day. Kaylee Wyckoff is up there. Ella McDowell finally coming into her own as a freshman and figuring out what her next gear is. So to your point there, the lineup is consistent, where we haven't seen with baseball, where the lineup is inconsistent. So really, what I find most interesting is you've had this top of the order, Reagan Johnson, she gets on base all the time, but Reagan Kramer has really, again, taken a step as well in that Arkansas lineup and been a big key for them to get big innings and get multiple runners on, because they've been really, really good to start the game, scoring 3, 4, 5, 6 runs in those first 2 innings. And that's been a strength of, let's get out early, knowing that Robin and our pitching staff can shut the other team down.
Absolutely. And I just think that they have this thing about them right now where it's just like, even if they get down in a game, they don't feel like they're out of it. And it's because of that lineup. I mean, you think about it. You mentioned her, Reagan Kramer. She's 6th on the team in batting average right now, but she's 2nd in on base percentage. And that's why she's in that 2 slot, because she just draws so many walks. Reagan Johnson, she's 3rd on the team in batting average. She's batting right now 369. But dang, if she gets on, you have a lot to deal with, because she's so fast. They just have a lot of weapons, and like different weapons is the thing this year. It's not all the same hitters throughout the lineup at all. They are all truly very different. Bri Ellis, like you said, like right now she's the front runner for National Player of the Year. I don't think it's really like, that's not even a contentious thing to say. Like, right. I think everybody agrees right now. Like, she's the front runner. You have that right in the heart of your lineup, that now with these other hitters stepping up, you really have a lineup that I mean, it's hard to pitch to anybody and like just feel good about, intentionally walking her. It's just a team that right now, like I followed this team since this program since the year before they won the SEC outright, the year that they tied it with Florida. This is the best I felt about a team since that 2022 team that won the SEC and was a game away from the Women's College World Series. I just think that this team has all the pieces it needs. They're just, yeah, that one pitcher, consistent pitcher away from like me really thinking that they like who wants to play them.
Right, nobody. I don't think there's anyone right now that wants to play Arkansas, but there are two opponents left on the schedule. I'm curious on Texas A&M. What do you got on them? What's going to be some of the challenges of going down to College Station and pulling off what would be, I guess, the second best, maybe the best series win in the Courtney Deifel era? I know, obviously, when they beat Florida, Florida was number 2 at the time, and Texas A&M 1-2, depending on what you look at it. So would be another top 2 series win for this Razorback team.
Yeah, and if I'm not I hope I'm correct on this. I'm pretty positive I am. But whenever the last time they went down to A&M was that 2022 season I was talking about, and that was actually it to just give you a holistic perspective of this program where it's been at where it is now. That was their first series win at Texas A&M, like in program history that year. It's been historically a hard place for Arkansas to win, but also the Arkansas teams weren't as good as they are now. But it's a team now this year. It's like they were in a totally different spot than A&M in 2022. Like that was a series that Arkansas goes into and like we should win this. This year you're going into and you're like, man, this is going to be a tough challenge. But what isn't in the SEC this year? I think the thing about A&M is they're just solid across the board. They're pitching. The name you really need to know is Emily Kennedy. She's kind of their ace. She's pitched way more innings than anybody else on their team this year. She's at 100. 13 and 2/3 innings. The next closest is at 49 and a third. So that you're going to see her a ton this week. And if Arkansas can have success against her, and then maybe give fits to whoever else comes in, they'll have a really good shot. But I mean, it's a great A&M lineup too. Like Arkansas's pitching is going to have to be there as well. A&M hits 345. You're going to need to know the name Coco Woolley for sure. She's like just a mainstay on that team. I mean, she's a household name in college softball. She has 44 hits, 11 doubles, 22 RBI. She's great. Amari Harper, she's batting 456 right now. That's not too much below Brie Ellis, so that should give people an idea of how well she's hitting. Maya Perez, I mean, they just have a stacked lineup too. It's one of those deals where this weekend, I mean, this is kind of a duh any weekend in a baseball or softball series, but it's going to come down to pitching, who pitches better, because these are two good lineups and two coaches between Deifel and Ford who their forte is calling pitches. So it's really going to be, I think, a battle of who's on with calling their pitches, which pitchers are on with locating their command. That's been one of Arkansas's bugaboos this year is they sometimes struggle with that command and not attacking the zone. I don't think this is a series you can afford at all to just be giving free passes. So they're going to have to just attack the A&M hitters and give them their best stuff.
Let's talk about that Arkansas pitching because I'm curious for you, especially this weekend, again, going to such a really good offensive team. What's the pitcher not named Robin Herron, right? Like, because that's the cop-out answer, saying Robin. What pitcher for Courtney Deifel's staff has to be on if they want a chance? Is it a Reese Berline, or do you have one of the freshmen, Peyton Burnham or Cam Harrison?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily would single out one that has to be. Just one of the three needs to be, to be honest. Because Robin can pitch a lot in one weekend. And if she doesn't have her best weekend, they're going to probably need two of those bunch to step up. I mean, you just really got to have in softball 2 pitchers have a good weekend to win a series. As far as you just got to win 2 or 3, and if you have 2 that are really on, you got a great shot. I think Peyton Burnham's probably the most likely candidate. She actually didn't pitch last weekend against Colorado State, so she kind of got a weekend off to maybe just get to rest and recalibrate and stuff. Whenever she's on, she's really good. I mean, she's one of the best freshmen in the league this year. I think Cam Harrison, whenever she just trusts her stuff, she can really be a tough pitcher for opponents to deal with. And then Reese Berline, if she's on, her spin is so crazy on her pitches. I mean, she's going to get a lot of swing and miss. So just really, if one of those can step up this weekend, and that's kind of what happened at Florida is honestly, Robin had a great weekend all weekend. She gave up the grand slam in relief on the game they lost, but that shouldn't diminish the fact of how good of a weekend she had. Peyton pitched good enough that series, but then it was really Cam Harrison who came in that last game and she just shut him down. If they can have that again this weekend, I like their odds. it's just you go through this conference, I think this year, it's always tough, but it's kind of ramped up another level this year with OU and Texas in there. You don't go into weekends like this anymore, I don't think, like any bit of like nervous, if that makes sense, because you're facing such good teams every weekend. It's like, what's the difference of going and playing at A&M right now? You've already played at Tennessee, at Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, in their schedule, they did them no favors. Arkansas finished fourth in the SEC last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
The three teams in front of them, A&M, Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas went there to all three of those for series this year. And oh, by the way, OU joins the league. Let's put them on their schedule too. So they've had a tough little schedule. So they shouldn't be afraid.
You always think that there's like going to be breathing room at some point in a season, like a chance. You look at baseball, right? They had Missouri for a weekend, South Carolina, really easy stretch to begin with. But then you look at softball, and it's like 1-16. Every single one of these teams are really, really, really good. I mean, look at Missouri, a team that everyone thought was going to be on the bottom, and they ended up taking the series against Oklahoma. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on in the SEC this season, but that's part of what makes it fun and what, makes the SEC the best college softball league in the country. So I'm curious for you as we kind of look ahead to the next couple of weeks, what for Arkansas, right, has to go right to, how do the stars align for this team to get to OKC?
Yeah, no, you mentioned it, how tough the conference is. I mean, Missouri is like tied for last in the SEC with 4 wins, and 2 of those are OU and A&M. It's like, okay, I guess you come out and shot against the number 1 team. It's so tough that I just think that they're just battle tested enough right now that if they can just their problem the past 2 seasons, let's be real, it kind of started to dip off their last series of the regular season. They lost at Missouri 2 seasons ago, lost at home to Ole Miss in the series last year, and it kind of bled into the SEC tournament, and they just couldn't figure it back out. They've got to find a way to maintain what they have going on right now and keep it in a bottle and just not relax, if that makes sense. Like, you just can't relax in the sport. Like, the moment that you think that you have it all figured out, I feel like you don't. So I think that Courtney Deifel's done a pretty good job from what we've heard and what clips I've seen of her talking to the team of just demanding that they have more in them. I think that's the mentality you got to have. Like, you're winning these series right now. You're beating South Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee. You won series, but like, there's still more in the tank. I think that's the mentality you got to have. And the moment that you think that you're going to plateau, that you think that you've reached your pinnacle, I think that's when you actually start to take that nosedive down. And I just think the past 2 years, it's just like they just ran out of gas toward the end, and it came after they exhausted all this energy to get to a spot, that had them sitting pretty, getting a regional host. But this team just, I don't know, it just feels different to me. I've said it since they started their non-conference. I was like, this team is just, they're just different. It's just the lineup, I think. It's the first time that I felt this good about a lineup since that year that had KB Sides at the top, Lenny Malkin, Hannah Gamble was on a tear that year. Daniel Gibson. Like, that lineup didn't have holes. That's how I feel about this lineup too. That 2022 lineup had more power hitters. They were getting a lot of home runs. I mean, I think they have the SEC record in home runs. But this team just has different types of hitters, can create some havoc other ways. I just think they're different lineups, but in the same way, they're really put a lot of pressure on the other team. So I think right now it's just kind of bottle up what you have, but don't get satisfied.
And I love that you brought up the last 2 weekends of the last 2 years of that, especially last year, the Ole Miss series, and it's like you can see them losing it. And the question's going to be, is that what LSU is going to be like in 2 weeks? Because LSU, again, not one of the top teams in the SEC, that top echelon, but still a good enough team where they're going to challenge you at home and really make it earn a series win, get some momentum heading into the SEC tournament. Ethan, anything else you want to talk about when it comes to softball before we wrap up?
I mean, I'll just go on that note. The fact that LSU is 9-9 in the SEC and ranked top 10 in the nation tells you everything that you need to know about the conference this year. They've gone through a gauntlet. This team, I just think right now has a lot going well for it. I think the things to watch, though, for the next few weeks, people wanting stuff on their radar. I think everybody's interested in the Bri Ellis National Player of the Year campaign. They'll be releasing, trimming down those watch lists. That's coming up next week. They'll have the draft for the ASUL that she got her golden ticket for. That's May 3rd, I believe. And then right after that, it's SEC tournament and beyond. So it's about to all get real. It's crazy how this always happens this year because of everything else going on at once. All these sports coincide that it feels like it sneaks up on you, but we are on the doorstep of postseason.
And that is why you joined the show today. Nobody better to talk about all the postseason stuff and all the implications than Ethan Westerman. Ethan, it should be a fun couple of weeks. We will definitely have you back on the show at some point soon, but thank you for joining. Stick around because I'm going to wrap things up right after the break. For Ethan Westerman, I'm Evan Kamico. We'll be right back in a moment. A big thanks to Courtney Mims and Ethan Westerman for joining the show. We've had a lot of fun so far, and I'm going to continue the fun right here as we close shop. 11.7 college baseball tweeted out their joking field of 64 projections, and I think it's just too good not to talk about right now. So this is the Arkansas region, you could say. Arkansas, the 3 seed overall. You'd have the Big Ten second place team, which would be Iowa if you look right now. Then a red-hot Big 12 team. We all know what happens when a red-hot Big 12 team comes to Fayetteville the last 2 years. Whether it's TCU or K-State, they get out of the region and make a strong push for Omaha. TCU did it. K-State did not last year. Then fourth, you've got your SWAC team. So I think this is probably pretty accurate of what you'll see. Arkansas fans could be happy, could not. Big shout-out to the Razor Pig Kid for taking this screen grab and letting me steal it because I just did. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Rubber Match. Thank you all for tuning in. For Courtney Mims, Ethan Westerman, I'm Evan Gamigo saying so long. We'll see you back here next week on The Rubber Match. Arkansas and Texas next week. That'll be a really fun show. For now, saying so long, I'm Evan Gamigo.